This will be a summary of the simple historical understanding of Revelation 6. Revelation 6 is one of the most complex allegories in the entire book. This text was based in a proto-understanding that was likely written in 59 CE. This proto-understanding was an eyewitness account of an eclipse. This text is extremely complex, and again, the complexities here cannot be underestimated. The simple way to break down these allegories is to understand that each seal has three allegories in it. The first allegory is the King Era allegory. The allegory is only a time reference. The second allegory is the star season allegory. Again, this allegory is only a time reference. The third allegory is the apocalypse event allegory. This allegory is the specific eclipse event that the author is speaking of. The most simple way to divide each seal is to remove the horse and what we can call the object. The King Era allegory is basically the description minus whatever other object is there. In the first seal, the King Era allegory is, and he was given a crown and he rode out as a conqueror bent on conquest. This King Era is the era of Julius Caesar. It is only a time reference. The star season allegory in this seal is the bow. This is the object in this allegory. Again, this is only a time reference. The apocalypse event allegory is the horse and its color. Again, the complexity of this chapter should not be underestimated. Seal 5 and Seal 6 are extraordinarily complex, but again, we're only addressing simple history, so complexities will be dealt with later. Now, once you break down all the references, it looks something like this. Now notice that the 6th King Era is the era of Nero. This is the final King Era time reference. Whatever the author is speaking of is in the era of Nero. The star season allegory are these 5 objects. These 5 objects are astrological. They are Sagittarius, Libra, Ara, Perseus, and the Hyades cluster. Of all of these references, the Hyades cluster appears to be the most complex. For historical purposes, the author is only speaking of the Hyades cluster under the cryptic name of Hades. However, it should be noted that later this cluster of stars will represent both the literal Greek understanding of Pleiades and an understanding of hell. It will depend on the interpretation. In this chapter, the simple understanding of the cryptic Hades is the Hyades cluster. The star season allegory is a time reference, but it is very vague. The star season allegory, like the King Era allegory, is completely useless by itself. The star season allegory only lists 5 groups of stars that can be seen during the days and nights around the apocalypse event. Now, the apocalypse event allegory is the eclipse mentions in the 6th seal, plus the 4 horses and their colors. The apocalypse event is an eclipse on April 30th, 59 CE. You can find the path of the eclipse and the times for the eclipse on the NASA website. Taking those times and locations for the eclipse, you can plug those into Formulab, which is also online. Links will be provided below. Plugging those dates and locations into Formulab, this is the apocalypse event. The white horse is Jupiter, the fiery red horse is Mars, the black horse is Mercury, and the pale horse is Venus. Saturn, due to its relative position, would have been nearly impossible to see for several months. Notice that the allegory of the horses and their color is exactly the same order as is delineated in the star map. Also notice the location of the Hyades cluster at this particular time. Revelation 6 is incredibly accurate. There are multiple authors here, and there are multiple understandings. This is extremely complicated, though the simple understanding still exists, and this simple understanding can, with a little time, be located and verified. Chapter 6 was based in a proto-understanding of an eclipse. The likely original authorship date of this text was 71 CE, though due to the complexities, an earlier date for the proto-understandings cannot be excluded. The question, of course, ultimately boils down to, what did this allegory originally look like? Chapter 6 is largely consistent with 71 CE, though again there are multiple complexities here that lead to a conclusion of later manipulation. Later authors left the original allegories mostly intact, but added a simple overlay that gave a more complex understanding. So this is the simple way to break down Revelation 6. Again, complexities will not be addressed here, though later Revelation 6 will be shown to be one of the most complex chapters in the book. For a more detailed breakdown of the simple understandings, the original videos still exist, and those will be linked below.